revolution, there is no more status quo. But the sun comes up and the world still spins. I helped Lafayette draft a declaration. Then I said I gotta go. I gotta be in Monticello. Now the work at home begins. So what did I miss? What did I miss? Virginia, my home sweet home. I wanna give you a kiss.
What did I miss is the operational question here on The Nose today. We're going to talk about movies that we didn't talk about this year, movies that some of you might have missed, that we might have missed. We also have sort of the Cecil B. DeMille version of The Nose. We have a lot of panelists here milling around, and they've got javelins and crossbows. And we're going to get going here. You're going to hear from some of the panelists you know and love as we go along. We're going to begin at the top, though, with David Edelstein, America's Greatest Living Film Critic. This is something he and I would typically be doing over coffee somewhere in New York, but instead we're going to just talk about it right here on the air. So, David Edelstein, welcome back.
Well, thank you. It's an honor. And, I didn't get to talk about a lot of these movies. So, you need me to crap on Hamnet and a couple of these other movies that maybe you liked a little more than I did.
Yeah.
But
by the way, crap on Hamnet is one of the worst breakfast dishes I've ever had. No, I haven't even seen Hamnet or Marty Supreme, and I think we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the films, maybe a little bit below the radar or not as high on the radar. I'm going to start with a framing device, because when we first started all of this stuff, there's having a conversation about this episode. Renee Good was still alive. A lot of things have happened that kind of maybe changed the tenor of stuff. And I was reading this thread by a guy named Sam Green, who runs the Russia Institute at King's College in London. And he says a really interesting thing. He's just talking about our political situation, but he says, authoritarians win because they control imaginations, because they make it impossible for citizens to imagine solidarity, to imagine justice, to imagine victory. Hollywood have us believe that authoritarianism wins when Voldemort takes over Hogwarts or Sauron conquers Gondor, but that's wrong. There are no pitched battles between good and evil. Democracy dies in banality and plain daylight, not glory and darkness. And, with that in mind, David, when I read that and I thought about today's show, I thought, really, in that context, a political movie is a much more expansive term. There were political movies this year, like One Battle After Another. But I would argue that in a lot of the movies this year that are about human relations, and if you want to talk banality, we could start with the movie Ephus, that are about how people get along or don't get along, are, in fact, they do bear very significantly on
Colin,
condition of our society.
Did you ever think that empathy itself would be politicized?
Everything's on the table now.
Roger Ebert famously said that movies were empathy machines, and if there were ever an administration, literally, explicitly, that was telling us that empathy is maladaptive, is somehow or other, destructive to the human species, it's this one, and art, is more than ever our lifeline to sanity. The best is more real than what the government tells us. I guess that's always been true of great art, but I don't know why. For some reason, it seems particularly urgent right now. And it's great to be able to talk about some of these movies that are under the radar. I did want to just, give you just reran a show on lists, and you probably know I think they're the bane of modern criticism, all these indistinguishable clickbait 10 best lists. So do you want to hear mine?
Sure.
I'll show you my list. You show me yours, but I think we're going to talk today about the film It Was Just an Accident. This is a film that's won a lot of critics' prizes, but do not judge it too harshly because of that. It's actually a masterpiece. It's Jafar Panahi. It's an Iranian film. It's a farce. It's a tragedy. It's a movie made under a brutally repressive system about a group of people clinging to the last shreds of empathy.
Yeah, and we should say also about this movie, we don't want to do too many spoilers about it, but it actually appears to take place in the not too far distant future. And at least that would be my reading of it. And yeah, it is very much about people who have been tortured, and this is not a spoiler, it starts right at the beginning, that they come across somebody who they think may have been this faceless guard or interrogator who tortured them, which doesn't sound like a very comic premise, but it is very funny. I think there are some jokes in there also about other movies. There's one Wes Anderson joke in there. I mean, there's a Wes Anderson shot right in this movie that's very, very funny. But, David, since you brought that one up, let me just talk about the beginning of that movie. So
that's my film of the year, by the way.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And it is a movie ultimately about empathy and how we decide to forgive. And at the beginning of the movie,
the perils of forgiving. I mean,
yeah.
It's a very mixed message, this movie.
Yeah, although I don't think Panahi thinks that there's a mixed I think he thinks there's a very clear message.
No. In the end, humanism will always win out in his movies, but whether or not that's politically effective in the short term, who can say?
So at the beginning of this movie, what you see this family of three, nuclear family, husband, wife, and a little kid in the backseat bouncing around. And eventually what happens is that they hit a dog, and the husband gets out of the car. And we don't see what he does, but we think he just kind of maybe even just uses something to put the dog out of its misery, just kills the dog somehow. But before that, David, and I didn't pick it up until I went back and rewatched the beginning, the little girl says, who are we going to bother with loud music? We don't live near anybody, and nobody ever comes to see us, and you don't ever have company over. And I think this director doesn't do anything by accident. There aren't any throwaways. And I think that's a really interesting, it begins with this guy who has socially isolated himself, cut himself off from other people. He's the suspected torturer, interrogator. And I'd like to sort of begin maybe with that, David, that idea that I think we could sort of see in some other movies too, that our connections to people are incredibly important.
Completely important and dissipating and decaying as we speak. That's a combination of things. I mean, I think we all think the people now, the oligarchy, shall we say, is increasingly isolated from the concerns of ordinary Americans, quote unquote, whatever that means. But also something I've been talking about on your show for years, the culture is just getting more and more private. And as we lose our public culture, as we lose even our sense of what reality is, we're all able to create our own realities that are kind of impenetrable. I mean, this is why we need art so badly, to reflect back the things that we've repressed, that we haven't been able to see in ourselves. Yes, his isolation, his lack of connection, is what makes him a potential torturer, somebody who has stopped thinking about the survival of the species, of other human beings, and started thinking about the survival of his very narrow government and its very, very short-term and I would say corrupt and inhuman goals.
So yeah, and I think also that this whole business of identifying him, is it the guy? I think it's significant. This is very much a group enterprise, and it's funny too that there's a couple in their wedding outfits, a wedding gown and a tuxedo, who are among this group of people who are having this kind of adventure across the Iranian landscape. This whole bunch of people who are at times almost farcically trying to figure out whether this is the guy that they should hate or
it is
or
a farce. These people moving around back and forth. I mean, it is. You could almost take it for a comedy if it didn't, swerve so violently, literally, in places.
So, in the interest of time, I'm going to make a very sharp turn, but I think I can connect this very well. So, because I think I want to talk with you a little bit about movies that are about just humdrum social connections, and I do think the movie Ephus is we talk about slow cinema. Evis makes Kelly Reichardt movies look like Mission Impossible movies. I mean, Evis is about a bunch of kind of worn out guys playing one last baseball game in some kind of rec league they're in a worn out baseball field that's about to be replaced by a school, which they're very distinct. They really regard this as a very frivolous use of land, that you would be building a school on it.
Well, Colin, isn't that really consistent with a lot of the themes in movies these days about the death of the patriarchy, the death of manhood, the aging and impotence of, no disrespect to the great Bill Lee, but these guys are tottering. They're on their last legs, and their whole romantic view of their Field of Dreams view of baseball is on its last legs.
Right. But I want to push back against that a little bit and say that I think it's also, maybe if you have to choose between Hell is Other People and We Need the Eggs, this is kind of a We Need the Eggs movie. It's really about how people who get on each other's nerves and seem kind of dysfunctional or seem to be too old to be doing what they're doing or whatever, they kind of do need each other. There's a kind of bonding going on and a commitment to a possibly idiotic and frivolous activity.
It is a public culture. They represent a public culture. When I look back at some movies, everybody or some landmarks in popular culture, everybody always says, Seinfeld is about nothing, or Seinfeld is about a lot of unpleasant people. But the point of Seinfeld was that they were a public unit. They were a friend group that they could not survive individually without these other people. And that's what I think that a lot of artists are telling us now. It is lacking in our, no matter how much we confess on social media, there's still a sense that we are separate. And the idea of this baseball field dying in front of our eyes, its last night, its last hurrah. It's terribly poignant. I mean, it's larger than these men. It represents something. And I think our artists have been telling us that a long time. But I do want to say, I mean, they are men. There are no women particularly in the movie, and this has been. If we're going to talk about movies this year, I think. My second favorite film of the year by a wide margin is Sorry Baby, Eva Victor's. I know you spoke about it on the nose a few weeks back, and it's just an extraordinary portrait of trauma, a female protagonist driven half mad. And this is a real theme in movies like Die My Love and If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. Actually, those women are driven fully barking mad. And I think it's a combination of all the women writer-directors finally getting to do the female gaze after decades of living with the male gaze, but also and the fact that these women are not conventionally likable. But also, I was thinking about something that Bernard Shaw did in his plays. He had this thing about women ultimately being the ones to ensure the long-term survival of the species, while men sort of fight their silly wars. And I think women don't seem too confident now about the survival of the species. You see a lot of sick children in these movies, in collapsing houses.
You know one movie that you left out that that gets left out of all the 2025 conversations, like end of the year conversations, The Friend, which is also very women focused. It's Naomi Watts who inherits this enormous dog, and goes through all kinds of things in her own life. I actually think that's another great movie about human connections, and it's also a tremendous performance by both Watts and Bill Murray.
Sure. Well, Watts is one of the great in a very, very big list of great female film actresses right now. She is among the top, and it was nice to see her get to strut her stuff.
But I feel like there's movies that don't get talked about, or they're not I don't know, and they're not made a part of the end of the year conversations, the best things that came out. It's like if people aren't killing each other or drinking semen infused water out of bathtubs, then it can't be a really important, thoughtful, challenging movie. I just watched this movie, The Ballad of Wallace Island, which I found very, very touching, and a beautiful thing about loss and music, and these kinds of movies I think are important in the way that you and I are talking about right now, about the way that humans connect.
As you know, I worked on the script of a movie this year that I hope will come out this year. I hope will play some festivals coming up, and it's about a woman who's played by Amy Adams who is struggling with alcoholism and reconciling herself with her family. And I have to tell you that the money men who surrounded me in the past year as this movie was being made were very bleak and cynical about anyone going to the theater to see something like this. I mean, not so much at home. I mean, maybe people will tune into it, but yeah, there's no body horror. Nobody dies. Spoiler alert. It's not horror adjacent. All these a lot of these female directed movies are have a lot of body horror and self mutilation. They're really kind of upping the stakes, and these movies are just not grabbing the popular audience, the popular imagination, the way they used to, and it may be just part of the death of the movie theater, the movie house. People just aren't going out for movies that aren't special occasion movies, that aren't something that they can talk about on social media,
which is
or
too
on
bad.
Radio program.
Which is too bad, because I mean, a lot of these movies really are seen better that way. As you know, there's a great moment in the movie Sentimental Value where Stellan Skarsgård plays this director who's kind of making a little bit of a comeback, and he's going to be directing a movie, and there's a lot of excitement about it in Norway. But at one point he's giving a press conference, and Netflix is underwriting the movie. They're producing the movie. And at one point he's asked by a reporter, will this have a theatrical release? And he says, of course, because that's how movies have to be seen. They must be seen. And his manager, or whoever that guy is standing behind him, says, we're still in talks about that. And it becomes abundantly
We love
clear.
Netflix.
Yeah.
You can't, if you have a movie out there, you cannot, I mean, I've seen notes from, I shouldn't, betray any confidences, but, I've seen notes on the films I was involved in from, executives at Netflix already who have not bought or committed to anything, but that is so much in the conversation with quote unquote small movies.
Did they say that Amy Adams has to have a bathtub scene?
Actually, she has a shower scene.
Okay, that's a joke. There's actually an entire podcast about Amy Adams in bathtubs and why that just keeps happening over and over.
Well, that's great. Well, she continues that great tradition and gives a great performance. But is it does she self-mutilate enough to be nominated for major awards? I mean,
is that what you want, you Netflix ghouls? You need Amy Adams to hurt herself. So
really, body horror. Wait a minute. I mean, really, I'm talking. I mean, it's not. I'm being facetious, but a lot of these women. I mean, Rose Byrne in "If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You" gives a rave and purge performance, and Emma Stone, the great Emma Stone, is kind of tortured on camera for 2 hours in Begonia. That's another one of my favorite films this year. I mean, it's a remake of a kind of nutso Korean film called Save the Green Planet, and once again the men are unhinged, and it's the woman who's thinking about the survival of the species, or in this case, not. And it's a tremendous imaginative movie, but again, it's the hyperbole, the level of hyperbole in this movie. We are literally pushed to the brink of apocalypse. There's so much dystopianism. I mean, it's been true for many years, but it's starting to feel like reality now.
Yeah. I don't like Lanthimos movies, but I did like this one a little bit better, and I do think that that both Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons are just fearless. They just will.
Oh, they're tremendous. And Emma Stone is a goddess. Emma Stone is a great actress. She belongs with the best of them, like Jessie Buckley and Jennifer Lawrence, Rose Byrne, Saoirse Ronan.
So we're almost out of time here, and I want to get to at least one last thing. And since you mentioned Rose Byrne, you may know that Rose Byrne and Ethan Hawke had a very, very funny moment at one of the award shows in the last couple of days. But I know that you think that Ethan Hawke and Richard Linklater, a lot of people think this, they just kind of owned the year to a certain degree. I mean, if anybody bid off a big chunk of 2025, it would be those two men.
Well, Blue Moon is, as you know, one of my favorite films, and Nouvelle Vague is up there too. Richard Linklater, the writer, director, and sometimes just director, his work is too varied to kind of make him acclaimed by these textbook auteurists. Auteur directors must, above all, repeat themselves. But Richard Linklater is one of the best we have in this country. I mean, he is in the top tier of great American directors. And these two films, both quote unquote small films, with completely different vocabularies, tell us more about the history of our pop culture in the 20th century, and how we got here than almost any movie on this list. I really think both Blue Moon and Nouvelle Vague, it helps to have just seen Breathless again.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen Breathless, it's a great occasion.
You can get it on
HBO,
TCM, that whole thing. You can get Breathless right now.
Exactly. These are tremendous movies. And let me just say, some horror movies, Sinners, one battle after another, it's overrated, but, Train Dreams, a lot of this has been a fantastic year for movies. Really an unsung great year for movies. These are very, very vital movies, but very few of them have been financed by American studios. You see a lot of German money, a lot of French money, a lot of Australian money. And a lot of these movies flopped, quote unquote, at the box office. But they will have a second and third and fourth life on demand. And I just encourage everybody to find them. I hope you put a list up on the website of the films.
We'll do everything we can to lobby for them. I really do recommend, by the way, that people. I'll just quickly say that I probably was the Critics' Choice Awards, but Ethan Hawke was at the microphone and he said, some of you actors, you've also been critics. And then he reads a review that Rose Byrne wrote of his novel on Goodreads, in which she says it's like a Ryan Adams song, but not as good. And she's in the audience just dying. Ouch. And then he screams at her. He says, "It's a measure of how much I love your acting, Rose, that this didn't bother me. I was just happy you read my book."
Wow.
So
By the way, this is Ethan Hawke's performance of his lifetime.
I think it's the performance of the year.
He's not that transformative. He's not often a transformative actor.
Yeah.
And I think he's completely physically convincing in every way. God, this little Timothée Chalamet who gets all the attention for his show-off, monotonous performance. Okay, he's a great actor. Okay, he's a great actor too. But Ethan Hawke really deserves all the prizes.
I mean, this year he was in 3 movies: Blue Moon, She Dances, Black Phone 2. He starred in the TV series The Lowdown. He directed a documentary called Highway 99, a double album.
He's a great guy. He's a great guy. He's a really, really
seems like a nice guy.
I've interviewed him, and you have too. And he's a terrific guy, and he's a real Renaissance man. He was kind of upstaged by James Franco for a while, but I think he's now taking his place as another one.
No, he's the guy. All right,
American figures.
We have to wrap this up and go to another segment. We've been talking to America's Greatest Living Film Critic, David Edelstein. Thanks so much for that. We'll be back with the proverbial more after this.
At 8 o'clock, I know where I'm gonna go. I'm gonna pick my baby up and take her to the picture show. Everybody in the neighborhood is dressing up to be there too. And we're gonna have a ball just like we always do. Saturday night at the movies, who cares what picture you see?
All right, so we are going to talk about a lot of different movies here with a lot of different nose panelists. A little bit later, you'll be hearing from Sam Hadelman and Shawn Murray. Right now, in studio with me, Carolyn Paine, actress and comedian, founder and director of CONNetic Dance, creative producer and choreographer of the Bushnell Digital Institute, and other things that we would never be able to list because there's too many of them right now. Irene Papoulis taught writing for a long time at Trinity College, has written a book about writing too. Bill Yousman, professor of media studies at Sacred Heart University. We're going to start by talking about a movie that was a bomb. A bomb. It's called After the Hunt. It stars Julia Roberts and Andrew Garfield, Michael Stuhlbarg, Ayo Edebiri. So pretty strong cast there. And Julia Roberts, she doesn't even make that many movies, so it's kind of an event when she does. It is set at a mythical university called Yale. We are told about every 15 minutes that this is I'm going to be doing I'm going to be in a program at Yale later this year, and the people said, we'd like you to have access to anything you want around the campus. And I said, well, I would like to meet Julia Roberts at the Tandoor Grill, the way they do in the movie. And they told me that would not be possible. Anyway, this is about kind of a sort of a sexual harassment / sexual assault, ultimately maybe 2 sexual assault stories. And it's directed by Luca Guadagnino. Irene Papoulis is one of his big fans. Somehow or other, this just doesn't really quite work as much as we might want it to. But get us started here.
Yeah, I'm definitely one of his big fans from his 3 movies about yearning. I think he does longing so beautifully and the emotional depth of that so beautifully. But I also saw Queer, which was last year, which I love. Daniel Craig does an amazing job in that movie. But it takes place in Mexico, and he doesn't know anything about Mexico, and so the movie just kind of flops as a result of that, I think. And so I kind of felt the same way about After the Hunt, in the sense that
he doesn't know anything about New Haven?
Anything about the academic world. Yeah. And he only caricatures it in a way that for any academic, and I think Bill will agree, is just a completely cringe making. It's all the stereotypes of what academics do when they have dinner and how they talk about things, and even the idea of tenure and when people get tenure and what's going on. And it's so smug and ridiculous about that. Not even to mention the sexual assault narrative there. So it's just kind of, I was just cringing all the way through.
I mean, I think, Carolyn, a fair question is, and I wanted this movie to succeed too, but what is it even supposed to do? I mean, is it just a certain kind of story? I mean, I don't know. I mean, tell me a little bit about how you reacted to it.
Yeah, I watched this willingly. I had chose to watch this before even knowing that we were going to be talking about this, and I was so mad at it and disappointed in it. It does nothing. I don't know what it was intended to do, but it fell short, everything. And you had this great cast. I didn't know who directed it when I just watched it, and I felt like the direction fell short. And especially having just watched a movie like Sorry Baby, which is dealing with, sexual assault and so poignantly and so well, and this well-developed female character, and then to have this with these female characters that you had these incredibly capable actresses who just failed it. This movie, I mean, the only reason to watch this is so that you can join us in our rage of having watched this.
Well, I want to get to that about just a second here, but just to set up Bill a little bit. So we haven't really said Julia Roberts plays a professor, a tenure candidate. She's in competition with her best friend, with whom she has kind of a creepy, smoochy kind of relationship, played by Andrew Garfield. She's married to a character named Michael Stuhlbarg, who I think is a psychiatrist, but seems very overmatched anyway by all these crazy people. Ayo Edebiri is this very ambitious graduate student. I think Justin Chang in the New Yorker said the only direction she apparently got was act like you're not very trustworthy. But Bill, yeah, I don't know. Why didn't this movie work, besides all the reasons that your 2 friends just said?
So we're devoting the whole episode to why this movie didn't work?
No, you actually say anything you want.
Because we really, I mean, that's the thing. We really could.
It should, yeah. It's got all the recipes.
There's so much wrong with it. Yeah. It's like being set up for a date that you're really looking forward to, and then by the end of the date, you feel like, is there any reason to keep on living, or should we just, call it quits right now? I was looking forward to seeing this movie. Of course I was. It's about college, it's about college professors and intrigue and all of that stuff. And then as Irene said, you end up thinking like this is a film made by a person who knows nothing about what he is purportedly trying to deal with on screen. And then it's got all these great names associated with it. I love all of these people. And then I just hated all of them in the film. Now, some of them you're supposed to hate, for sure. I mean, that's kind of the part. But I just found them so creepy and so repulsive that I was never able to get into a moment of, you and David were talking about empathy in the first segment. There's nothing in this film that would make you empathize with anybody, I thought. They're all just so awful. And it's kind of like, you're constantly reading like these New York Times articles about the culture on college campuses and how intolerant it is. And they blame the students for all of that. And there is, it's not that that's entirely untrue. There is a little bit of that, but this was just such a horrible exaggeration of it that it left just such a bad taste that I don't think anything that he was trying to do was able to successfully ever come through.
Now, I would agree with all that, and I'm going to bring in Shawn Murray and Sam Hadelman now also, who are with us via Zoom. Sam Hadelman, Director of Public Relations at Dark Matter Media. Shawn Murray, stand-up comedian, writer, and host of the Fantasy Filmball podcast. So, Shawn, I just want to say that I agree with everything that the panelists said. I'm not sorry I saw this movie, though, and I kind of, once I realized it was a bad movie, I shifted into a different gear. And Shawn, I think I know you well enough to think that you would agree that once you give up any hope of a movie being any good, there's a whole other way you can approach it, particularly if it has kind of famous people who you might already have takes on in this not very good movie.
It's exactly right, Colin. That's exactly how I feel about America as well. Like once I gave up on America being like a successful thing, I'm like, there's so many famous people that live here.
Drop the mic and the show right now.
That's it. That's the keeper. That's the takeaway. Did you want to say anything else, or you just want to just drop the mic and walk away?
The wise thing to do would be to drop the mic, but I've never been wise, so I'm going to keep talking. No, but yeah, I think once you just accept, like, okay, yeah, this is not what I was sold. It's like I can build a better product out of it in my head by just accepting it on my own terms.
Yeah. Well, I think also, so this is my opportunity to make Shawn mad, and I'm going to. Because I have this theory that we gave up on superhero movies so much. We got so mad by being just abused and bullied and dominated by Marvel movies in particular that we just decided superhero movies couldn't possibly be any good and we should hate them all. And Shawn was on with us talking about the Superman movie, but this is how I'm going to make you mad, Shawn. I actually liked Fantastic Four: First Steps, partly because at a certain point I realized it wasn't a really good movie. But then I thought, but it's kind of adorable. In its own. I mean, there's this baby, and they're all trying to protect.
I was saying, there's an adorable baby. That's where it ends. That's the last thing I adored in that film. So the moment the baby was born.
You couldn't even manage to meet this movie on its own terms.
It was just dumb. It was just like the whole plan of like, let's leave our baby in the middle of the street for Galactus or whatever. I don't know.
It's not something you want to tell the social workers you watched so that you could be a better parent. No, I get that.
Yeah, I guess I was looking at it from a social worker's perspective, and it's just like, how some people are like, I can't watch a movie where they kill a dog. Yeah. I can't watch a movie where they leave a baby in the middle of the street for a world-eating
sometimes the baby's got to take one for the team. So, Sam, I'm going to go over to you. Sam, any value to you in a bad movie? Can you enjoy a bad movie once you've sort of let go of its possible goodness?
It depends how bad it is and if it's meant to be bad. Mm-hmm. I don't think I'm actually pretty staunchly against watching bad movies by myself. Because why? Why would I do this to myself? I only have like a certain amount of hours to enjoy. Why would I go into something being like, okay, this is a bad movie. I know it's a bad movie. Let me watch. Now, if it's something like The Room, which is like meant to be a bad movie, that's fine. I can rock with a movie that intends to be bad. But like, I'm not a huge hate watcher. I can't really do it.
Okay, so now we have to go to Carolyn Paine because in fact, thinking about you and After the Hunt, which is obviously a movie made by really talented people who are trying to make a good movie and failing to do it, you watch a lot of movies that. Well, I don't know. You explain yourself.
Yeah, it feels shocking that I would have watched this movie because...
That's the big surprise.
Yes.
That you tried it all.
Yeah, I know. I surprised myself. And then I was like, well, this is why I don't watch things like this, because they could be bad. And then they're so bad. It's not the same as like a movie that you go into it like knowing that it's not ever trying to be lofty, or like it's just... like this year, most of the movies that I willfully seek out to watch are total garbage. Most of the TV I watch is garbage. Like, I don't want to have to think. I don't want to have to feel. I don't want to be provoked emotionally.
Wait a minute. Could you say more about what you get out of those movies?
Yeah, I just want to watch, like this year, I liked The Naked Gun. I'm sorry. I like just sitting there laughing at ridiculous things. I like horror movies because it's like preposterously, you're being chased by like demons and clowns with hooks and stuff. Like I like escapism through movies. Like if I'm not going to watch something that's like my safety that I've seen like 1,000 times, like rewatching like Curb Your Enthusiasm or something to soothe myself, I'm going to put on something that I know is going to make me laugh or has some thrills. This movie, After the Hunt, was billed as a psychological thriller. That's how I engaged in this mess in the first place. Just so we're clear, I thought it was going to...
If Michael Stolberg had been a clown with a hook, would that have helped the movie, do you think?
Honestly, if I had been a producer on this movie, I probably would have been like, you know what we should do?
That's right. Those are the notes that Carolyn from her office at Netflix, she's sending over that. Give him a hook, make him a clown.
Yeah.
Then we've got something here. All right, let's take a little break here. We're going to come back. We're going to hear more from Sam and Shawn and our wonderful panel here in the studio. And I don't know what's going to happen next.
My mother died. She said, bye-bye, baby, bye-bye. I said, where you going? I'm just born. She said, I'll only be gone for a while. My mother loved to leave in style. That's why God made the movie.
All right, so we're going to have to move fast here, but before we move fast, we have some thank yous to say, including the Jedi Master himself, Obi-Wan. Gina Amatruda is our technical producer today. Jonathan McPants is the producer of this episode. We got all kinds of people here in the studio. Let's talk about a couple of other movies that I'm glad that people decided that they were linked, because I think I saw them on successive days. One of them is Jay Kelly. This is a George Clooney movie directed by Noah Baumbach, also with Adam Sandler and a bunch of other famous people. The other one is Sentimental Value, which is directed by the Norwegian director Johan Trier, has the aforementioned Stellan Skarsgård, and also this amazing actress who I've now seen in 2 movies and whose name I do not know how to pronounce, but she's going to be a big star. So let's talk about Jay Kelly first. And so we've got a bunch of people here who all of whom have seen Jay Kelly, but now I've lost track. I know for a fact that, Irene, you've seen Jay Kelly, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not wrong about that. So we should say a little bit about this. This is sort of one of those guy getting to the end of his movie career and realize he doesn't have any real relationships. And it's in fact a message that it transcends even movies. It's The Great Gatsby. It's Citizen Kane. It's you crawl to the top and then you find out there's only room for one place to stand once you reach the top. So say a little bit about how that landed with you.
I kind of liked it. I think that's an interesting story. I expected not to like it because I heard from others that they didn't necessarily like it, but I thought it was a really interesting character study, of his character, and I kind of enjoyed it. That's my first thought. But I think it's about, there's so many movies where there's a man with a daughter. The daughter understands him and is frustrated by him, and he's just like rolling his eyes at her like, oh yeah, and there's something about like One Battle After Another kind of has that, as does Sentimental Value for that matter, and so I think that was kind of an interesting dynamic going on. Laura Dern and Adam Sandler were so good, especially Adam Sandler, I thought.
So let's go to Sam Hadelman on this one. I know that, Sam, you really like this movie a lot, right?
I did really like this movie. I didn't really expect it to be at the top of my movie list. I actually watched it in the movie theater, even though Netflix has gotten way too much of my money, like actually going to the movie theater. But it actually reminded me of like an earlier Clooney movie, The Descendants. where it's like classic bad dad movie. That's kind of like the through line between Sentimental Value, Jay Kelly, One Battle After Another, is that they're like classic bad dad trying to be good dad.
I think Leo's a good dad in One Battle. He's even got a dad body. He runs around in the bathroom.
But you could like,
you know,
he doesn't know how to do the hair. That's the problem. He doesn't know how to do it.
You know what I mean? Like just trying to be better dads. And I also, I think Irene might have said this, but I love when Adam Sandler is able to like really show his acting chops and add depth and, you know, to like these characters and to the film.
But I also feel like we're like 8 movies into that phenomenon. Actually, when I was watching this, and I think I might have said to my significant other, we have to stop saying, "Oh wow, Adam Sandler can really handle serious roles," because he's done it like 8 times.
We
now.
still can't believe it.
I know it's still a little unbelievable.
Not that I can't believe it. I always appreciate when he does. You know, I thought and I really appreciated how it felt so old Hollywood. I think that like a Sunset Boulevard type beat with like Clooney looking. I think this is probably the first movie I've seen Clooney look a bit more aged than I remember him in my head, and I think that added to the role. And the thing that really stuck out to me is how they wrapped it up. That ending, which I won't spoil, really stuck with me.
Okay, I won't spoil it either. I you know, Bill, one thought I had is Clooney as a vain man, which he did so well in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, and so well in Intolerable Cruelty. I thought this was a much more sort of pedestrian version of Clooney. He seemed like kind of vain man, like people I know, as opposed to like really sort of outsized examples of this. And I don't know. I just thought of all the way. I should let you talk. I'll shut up. Never mind. Just talk.
No, I think you're onto something, and I sort of agree with the pedestrian a little bit. I didn't hate this movie, and I wouldn't call this a bad movie, but I'm not necessarily totally sure I would call it a really good movie either. And I like Baumbach a lot, but this was not for me one of his best. I think it's spotty. I think there are some scenes which are really, really just excellent. I think there's an early scene in the film where he has a conversation with an old friend who, it turns out, like there's a lot more complications about whether they're old friends or old enemies or not. I thought that was a fantastic scene. I thought some of the stuff toward the end that you guys mentioned that we won't spoil was really interesting in terms of like opening up these questions of where does Jay Kelly stop and George Clooney become? You know, and there's some blurriness that they deliberately do with that I won't spoil. But for the most part, I don't think pedestrian is that far off. And there's an iciness to him at times that you understand because it's part of the character, and yet there's something a little off-putting about that.
Yeah.
But that's what I liked, though. I felt like I didn't like him, you know, and I kept thinking, oh, I'm going to see something that's going to make me like him, and I didn't really like him. And I liked that I didn't like him.
It really resembles a lot, to me, a movie that Noah Baumbach co-wrote the script for, and that's The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, which is also kind of about the guy at the end of his career, or he wonders if he's lost it, does he have anything left, you know, and he's going to these festival screenings of his work, and I just thought, wow, Noah, you already did this one. I also thought that the moment with Sandler at the end, and I agree with Sam, we're not going to wreck it, but I actually think that in Love Actually, when Bill Nighy says he just wants to get drunk with his fat manager and watch porn on Christmas Eve, I was much more moved by that. You know, I was like, okay, you're the person who's been propping me up the whole time, you know, and I treat you like crap, but I love you. I'd rather be Bill Nighy's agent, I guess, maybe, than the Adam Sandler.
You just pulled off a triple axel by bringing Love Actually into this conversation, for sure.
And I was going to say, I don't know if this works if it's not George Clooney, too. Like, I think that's kind of the part that sold it for me, is that, like, if it was any other, like, even more of, like, a B-lister star, I could see this being a bit easy to read. But with Clooney, like the actual place he's in his own career, I think that added a lot of depth to it.
Although maybe Michael Stolberg as a clown with a hook at the end of his career. You know, he's going to the festivals. The movies just don't land that well anymore. So to bring it back to Carol.
I haven't seen Jay Kelly. Yeah. I haven't seen Jay Kelly, but I feel like it's missing a scene where George Clooney confronts Tilda Swinton about the that she orchestrated Arthur, who carries a lot of bread.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a reference to the fact that Shawn
That
and
would
I
have
are
helped.
Sean and I
Yeah.
have in development.
Michael Clayton.
Yeah,
well,
we're doing some stretching
our
here.
podcast, not the guys you kill. It's just all the podcast episodes are about Michael Clayton. Everything is about Michael Clayton ultimately. No, I would be remiss if this show didn't end with us not having acknowledged possibly the biggest moment in American cinema this year, which is that Carolyn Paine, who for I don't know a decade maybe has done nothing but complain about having to go to movie theaters and watch anything. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be The Godfather. It could be Avenger. It doesn't make any difference. You actually voluntarily went to movies in theaters and liked it?
3 times
Yeah.
in 2025. Yes, I was asked to go to a movie like with people. And I said yes and enjoyed myself and ate popcorn and didn't complain and was kind of glad and no worse the wear for it. So maybe this is personal growth going into 2026. Or, maybe I should just continue to stay on my couch. I don't know. But that, I think, is something...
Well, you said the movies did land a little different, you thought.
So Naked Gun, for example, it was fun to be in a big room where everyone's laughing. I mean, the world is like really rough right now. So it was like nice to just kind of be in this room with all these strangers laughing about the same thing. You don't get that. So...
that is so true.
Right?
That's so important.
Yeah. It's, and I'm somebody who performs and pursues, getting that laughter from a room full of people. So it was nice to just kind of be in that room and be part of that.
Maybe you're not really Carolyn Paine.
Maybe we're having kind of a begonia moment.
Yeah, I was just thinking, Colin and I are going to have this place we want to bring you and get you to fess up about who you really are.
Make sure who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
So let's end on a positive note. I know Bill, David has already mentioned Train Dreams. You saw Train Dreams. Did you manage to see Train Dreams last night? You were in
Yes.
the theaters. Okay. So this is a movie that stars Joel Edgerton. Not a whole lot of other big famous people. I don't, Bill. Maybe you could set the movie up and just say why you think it might be the best movie you saw.
It was my favorite movie of that came out in 2025 for sure. And again, it's a quiet film, even though some pretty horrible things happen in it. But it's really just this one person's story as it goes through his entire life and how everything just happens to him. He has very little agency, and yet at the same time, I found something incredibly moving about it. And I would say it's one of those films you really just have to see, because any description of it is not really going to do it justice. And it had me from the first moment, and even at the end, I just kind of sat there because I couldn't move away from it, and it continues to linger with me.
Irene?
Would you say that's because of his acting?
I think that's a huge part of it.
So you could see his feelings. You could feel his feelings.
Yeah, but also it's the cinematography is fantastic. The story editing, like I just think it's a really
The narration.
Yeah.
Oh, did you see it
absolutely.
too? You saw it too?
Yeah, I saw it too.
Give us a 30-second, 40-second take on it, Sean.
I just feel like it's a weird, similar to what Bill said. It's a weird because it's like a vibes movie, but it's like they're not good vibes. Like it's pretty harrowing, his life, but it's just watching a guy let life happen to him, but it just happens to be a very interesting life, even though the things that are interesting aren't really the things that he's doing. It's kind of like, I don't know, like it's weird because it's a very slow movie and it's not like super action heavy, but I feel like it would actually be best watched in theaters where you can immerse yourself rather than being at home where it's super slow and you're like, you kind of tempted to grab your phone, where like in a theater, you just like, hey, I'm just in the forest with this guy.
I loved it too. I just want to say one quick thing about it, and then we're going to be out of time, which is one of my little insights of the year is sometimes you just want to let the material do the work for you. And I feel like I see a lot of movies that, particularly by famous directors, David was kind of referencing this, Like, I don't know, Paul Thomas Anderson, Wes Anderson, Spike Lee, Yorgos Lanthimos, they never let you forget that they're the director of the movie. And this like the material just kind of did the work. Just sit back and let the story unfold before our eyes. Don't overmanage us and don't overmanage your story. I think there's a real virtue in all that. And a virtue to having some of my wonderful friends and panelists back here. So Sam Hadelman, Shawn Murray, Bill Yousman, Carolyn Paine, Irene Papoulis. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, 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 yeah.